biologists find very difficult to expand, that anybody does, really, who can't ground morality objectively in some standard rightness. Where if you said, this is a desk, you say, well, that's correct, anybody who disagrees is wrong, right? Well, in morality, you can have correct moral statements, but we don't necessarily know what they are. You don't turn into a know-all just because you claim moral statements are objective.
No, but I mean,
just one question, Dan. Can we have a question to the science side, please? Yes, please.
This is a question for Professor Dawkins. How do you explain laughter?
How do I explain what?
Laughter.
There are many things that I can't explain. I genuinely, I think it's extremely important for scientists always to say when they can't explain things, which is, by the way, much of the time. In this particular case, I've lain awake nights worrying about that question. And it's one of many. I don't understand crying. I don't understand laughing. I don't understand. Well, smiling I possibly do, but no, I have no answer at all. Obviously, I'm committed to the view that there has to be an explanation, because it's something that we spend such a great deal of our time doing. It's energy consuming, it could be dangerous because it's very serious. It's the kind of thing which in the wild state would be extremely dangerous because it would summon predators. I'm not being funny. It's whenever a Darwinian sees a species spending a lot of time doing something loud and time-consuming, they should be worried if that there's got to be some kind of a Darwinian benefit to it. I don't know what it is. I presume that if I were able to see the ancestors of our species and how laughter developed ancestry, this might give a clue. Alas, that's no longer possible.
Question to the religious side, please.
Yes. Hello, this is for Rabbi Shmuley, if I call you that. How would you explain laughter?
I think part of being a religious individual, there are things which we can't explain. Right? For example, I would even argue that the more we try to explain those things which are ineffable, inexplicable, and wondrous, such as laughter. Laughter is the ability for people not to take themselves seriously. It's probably the most important thing that we have in society, because the whole reason for war and petty jealousy, contention, is that people take themselves so very seriously. I was once told by the head of my rabbinic academy in Jerusalem that when I was a student, that the essence of religion is to take God very seriously, never take oneself seriously. And the ability to laugh at oneself, especially, to be self-deprecating. We can't explain love. I'm not a scientist, and if I'm incorrect, I hope that Professor Dawkins and Professor Atkins will please correct me, but from everything I've read about love, we can explain the procreative urge, but we can't explain the nature of love, the idea of bonding even after copulation, the feeling, this emotion which generates an emotion. And on the contrary, I think if we were able to explain it, it would reduce it. And to an extent, that's one of the problems with scientific reductionism. We try to reduce everything to some nice little package explanation, thereby reducing human dignity in the process.
Is there anyone who'd like to explain laughter for us? and failing that, can we have a question to the science side, please? Jonathan at the back.
Professor Dawkins, you left me with the impression that Darwinian theory isn't pressing toward good, but towards evil. What are your thoughts on why we shouldn't choose to become Machiavellian princes? Why should we choose good instead of evil? Evil is our nature.
I think evil is our nature in that sense. I think that we are all the more on our own. We all the more have to face up to a cruel world alone. We live in societies. We have the freedom to decide to be completely selfish, to be completely hedonistic, to all the time go out for one's own selfish benefit and to hell with everybody else. I could do that. I have, however, the gift of foresight, as I said, coming from having evolved a large brain. Foresight is an emergent property. And I can look into the future and decide that although I might gain some short-term satisfaction from being selfish and getting some pleasure at somebody else's expense, this is not the kind of society that in the long run I would wish to live in. And I can get together with a whole lot of other people who turn out to hold similar views, and we can work out together, and we can read the great moral philosophers of history and the great political philosophers of history, and we can look at principles like the welfare of all sentient beings, we can look at other possible principles, and we can decide what is the kind of society in which we want to live. And for me, my knowledge of Darwinism, which tells me that we are going to get no help from our nature in this direction, means it's all the more urgent that we should think it through, think on our own 2 feet, and talk to each other about it.
A question for the religious side, please.
This is to both the Judaic and the Christian. Plato says, in the laws, Plato says that apart from sodomy, which is condemned anyway, and then he describes other things which are condemned. Because in both the Judaic and the Christian tradition, it is condemned. I'm asking, apart from the fact that it doesn't lead to procreation, do you have any other reasons to offer against sodomy?
The question is, do either of the religious speakers have a reason for the biblical prohibition of homosexual relations?
No, sodomy in general.
Sodomy in general, you've got like a little diagram to show you. I knew this was going to get interesting sometime. Firstly, sodomy in the Bible cannot be heterosexual. It comes from this famous story of Sodom and Gomorrah, which Professor Dawkins quoted earlier. Professor Dawkins clearly is a great biblical scholar. Where the men wanted to know the guests, let us know them. The word knowledge in the Bible is always carnal knowledge. So, firstly, I utterly reject those religionists who seize upon homosexuality as an abomination, to ridicule, ostracize, deplore homosexuals as if they're sick, or as if, because yes, the Bible does say that sodomy, just one second.
Could you focus on the act itself without, not let's say
I can't focus on the act.
let's say in the heterosexual context, let's say, as in others. I mean, the Athenians said that they used to treat women as men.
I will address it.
And they had Greeks.
I think a lot of people, I was going to say, a lot of people say that the Bible calls it an abomination, which it does. But the Bible also says that jealousy is an abomination. The Bible says that bearing false witness is an abomination. The Bible says eating shellfish is an abomination. Jews don't eat shellfish, but the Jewish community doesn't treat people who eat lobster the way some people treat homosexuals, including some people in the Jewish community, which I find repugnant. I think that homosexuality, we describe our religionists as a crime against nature, is absolutely silly when they cite how human anatomy seems to support heterosexual relations when, let's face it, 90% of the healthy heterosexual relationship, sexual relationship in a heterosexual union is rarely just about copulation. Who would say that kissing is natural? Is that what the mouth was created for? Who would say that masturbation is natural? Is that what the hands were created for? No comment from up there. So to me, I am loath to posit strictly rational explanations for the prohibition of homosexuality. But aside from saying that in the same way that God prohibits to a religious Jew eating a cheeseburger, mixing milk and meat, God also prohibits homosexuality. It's not that homosexuality is more natural. In fact, David Greenberg shows in his famous book, The Construction of Homosexuality, that it was as common and as rampant throughout history.